Years turned into decades. Efe saw acquaintances grow old and die, while she remained youthful. She had to occasionally pretend to be her own daughter or niece when newcomers asked how a woman of her apparent age held a title like Mama. But Ekpoma was a place where many minded their own business, and long-time residents either didn't question it or whispered theories behind closed doors. Some thought she was simply blessed by the gods or had a stash of ancient beauty secrets. Others, like Osato's mother Itoho, harbored darker suspicions but lacked proof. Inside, Efe lived with an ever-present duality: satisfaction that she had achieved what she wanted, eternal youth and the allure of beauty, and dread that one day it could all come crashing down. The warning from Iyawoya never really fully left her. If the juju is broken, the spirit will seek what was taken. She fortified her life with careful rituals to keep the juju strong. She would leave offerings of foods at forest crossroads, speak incantations at new moons to appease any restless souls, and avoid the gaze of those she suspected to be spiritually perspective. Which is why, on that bright morning in the market when Itoho pulled little Osato away so briskly, Mama Efe felt a twist of worry. Itoho's eyes almost looked like she knew. But how could she? Perhaps it was simply a grieving mother's instinct, clutching her remaining child tightly. Mama Efe shrugged off the uneasy feeling. She had one more year before the juju needed feeding again. Since Ivie's life had sustained her just months ago, she was safe for now, she told herself. Yet, fate has a way of catching up to those who outdone it for too long. The spirits that had watched from the shadows were patient, and the God that Itoho prayed to every night was listening. Mama Efe could not sense it, but forces were aligning against her, and an encounter that would change everything was looming just around the corner. It happened on an afternoon as golden as any other. Not long after that uneasy morning, the sun hung high and hot, and the market thrummed with activity. Women called out prices of gari and plantain. Men argued cheerfully over the cost of yams, and children chased each other between stalls with carefree laughter. Osato had accompanied her mother Itoho to the market again. This time, Itoho's hands were full with a basket of groceries as they prepared to leave. Osato begged her mother for a moment. She had spotted a small puppy sniffing around a vegetable stall, and her child's heart melted for the furry thing. Reluctantly, Itoho allowed Osato to pet the puppy while she herself stopped to chat with a neighbor. "Stay where I can see you," she warned. Osato giggled as the little brown puppy licked her fingers. In her delight, she didn't notice that the puppy was trotting away, playfully leading her further than the row of stalls. Osato followed, just a few steps, then a few more, until she strayed beyond her mother's watchful eyes. Meanwhile, Mama Efe was finishing a sale at her spice store. She handed a parcel of peppers to a customer and tucked her day's earnings into the fold of her wrapper. Feeling tasty, she picked up a calabash jug of cool zobo drink a neighbor had given her and stepped out from behind her stall to take a sip. At that exact moment, the puppy Osato followed darted between Mama Efe's feet, nearly tripping her. Mama Efe stumbled, and Osato, chasing close behind, collided directly with the spice seller. The collision was hard. Osato, small and running fast, slammed into Mama Efe's legs, while Mama Efe, caught off guard, lost her balance. The calabash of zobo slipped from her hand and smashed on the ground, deep lead liquid splattering like blood across the dusty earth. Mama Efe herself fell backward against her stall, and Osato tumbled to the ground with a sharp cry. For a split second, the busy market seemed to freeze. Heads turned towards the commotion. Mama Efe had caught herself on the edge of her table, avoiding a complete fall. but her neatly tied gele had slipped off, and her hair tumbled from around her shoulders. Osato sat on the ground, dazed, a scrape already forming on her knee where it hit a stone. Itoho, hearing her child's cry, spun around and saw with horror the scene. Osato on the ground and towering above her, Mama Efe with an expression of shock and something else. Pain, fear. Itoho dropped her basket and sprinted over, heart in her throat. Osato! She gasped, reaching her daughter and checking her over. The child's palms were scratched and tears welled in her eyes from the fright, but she seemed more startled than hurt. Mama Efe was trembling. I'm sorry, she stammered, though it wasn't clear whom she was apologizing to. She reached a hand towards Osato as if to help her up, but Itoho pulled the girl away protectively, years of instinct and recent fear flaring. Osato, sniffling, managed to say, "It was my fault, Mama. I bumped into her." Itoho hushed her gently and lifted the girl in her arms. Only then did she properly look at Mama Efe, and what she saw made her blood run cold. Mama Efe's face had gone deathly pale. Her eyes were wide, not with anger, but with what looked like terror. Itoho followed the woman's gaze downward. There, amid the shards of the broken calabash and the spilled zobo drink, lay a small carved figurine. It was about the size of a doll, made of some dark wood or clay, and painted with faded symbols. Itoho immediately felt an enormous aura from it. Something about it was deeply unsettling. It must have fallen from Mama Efe's wrapper when she stumbled. Mama Efe longed to grab it, her hands shaking visibly. She clutched the figurine at the chest, and for a heartbeat, Itoho and Mama Efe locked eyes. In Mama Efe's youthful face, Itoho now saw the unmistakable mask of panic. The older woman yanked her scarf back over her head hurriedly, hiding her face in its shadow. Without another word, Mama Efe fled from the scene, leaving behind her spilled drink and a crowd of onlookers whispering in confusion. Itoho held Osato tightly as a few concerned neighbors came over. "Is the girl okay?" one asked, peering at Osato's scraped knee. Yes, she will be fine," Itoho replied absently, her thoughts still on the strange object and Mama Efe's reactions. Osato was already calming down, resting her head on her mother's shoulder, but Itoho realized the child felt unusually cold. Perhaps it was shock, she reasoned. As Itoho comforted Osato, she heard snipers of the gathering crowd's murmurs. What was that all about? Did you see Mama Efe's face? I've never seen her drop her smile like that. She ran off as if devils were after her. One elderly woman who had come to see the commotion bent to pick up something from the ground. What's this? She mumbled. Itoho saw in the woman's hand a fragment of the figurine. Apparently, it had cracked when it fell. It looked like a piece of carved wooden leg with a painted symbol. The woman squinted at it, then shrugged and tossed it aside as just some broken craft. She was more concerned with the spilled drink making the ground sticky. Itoho quickly left the chatter, carrying Osato away. She wanted to get her daughter home. My head hurts, Mama, Osato whispered, clutching at Itoho's blouse. Itoho's heart squeezed with worry. She quickened her pace, leaving the market behind, all the while murmuring a prayer under her breath. Back in the market, Mama Efe's store remained unattended for the rest of the day. A rare occurrence, she almost never left early or without a word. People helped gather her scattered spices and covered her goods as best as they could. Not sure what else to do, her sudden departure and the peculiar incident became the talk of Ekoma by evening. Meanwhile, Mama Efe had hurried straight to her small home at the edge of the market quarter. It was a simple house. Inside, she bolted the wooden door of her single window and collapsed onto a woven mat on the floor. still clutching the carved figurine. Her chest heaved with panic. She examined the figurine by the dim light filtering through the cracks. A thin fracture now ran along its length. Right through the middle, a piece of one leg had broken off entirely. Lost back there in the market, likely. Mama Efe's heart shook as she tried to fit the broken edges together. The figurine felt cold, so very cold, no longer warm with the subtle pulse she had grown used to over decades. No! 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 She whimpered, her voice thin and frightened. This could not be happening. What she had feared for so long, the one thing that could undo everything, her juju, had been broken. She did not know exactly how or why. Osato had simply bumped into her. Was it the physical impact that cracked it? Or something about the girl herself? Mama Efe's thoughts swirled chaotically. She recalled the moment of collision, the red splash of Zobo, the shock, the figurine slipping out, and a sensation, just for an instant, as Osato's small hands had touched her arms when falling. It had felt like a spark of electricity, a jolt that went through Mama Efe's entire body. In that split second, she had felt the years locking behind her facade press forward, as if eager to catch up. It was unlike anything she had felt before. As the sky outside deepened to evening orange, Mama Efe lit a lamp with trembling fingers. In its glow, she caught sight of herself in a shadowed mirror on the wall. A strangled cry escaped her lips. There, in her reflection, was a strand of grey in her hair that had never been there before. Her face looked the same for now, but she swore the skin around her eyes had fine lines that morning did not recall. No, I can fix this. I have to fix this, she told herself, voice rising in desperation. The broken figurine stared back at her with its blank, featureless face, now clearly split by a crack. First, she tried to invoke the juju's power as she had done countless times to draw energy. She closed her eyes and held the pieces together, chanting the old incantation taught by Iyawoya. But the words fell flat in the silence of her house. The figurine remained inert. Not even a whisper of power flickered. Next, Mama Efe thought through her small wooden chest where she kept her ritual supplies. Bits of herbs, chalk, and bones. She ground some charcoal and red clay, mixing them with palm oil to form a paste, and smeared it along the crack of the figurine, drawing a symbol for binding and healing. Her hands moved frantically, recalling any and every bit of folk magic she knew. She spat on the figurine, blew on it, rocked it in her palms while humming a lullaby-like spell. Nothing worked. Sweat beaded on her forehead. A pounding headache began to build behind her eyes. Outside, night had fallen fully, and with it came a chorus of crickets. Normally, such sound suited Mama Efe, but tonight they grated on her taut nerves. In her desperation, one thought rose above the rest. The witch doctor, Iyawoya. She might know what to do, how to mend or replace the figurine. Perhaps this damage could be undone by the one who had facilitated it. Clutching the broken juju and wrapping it securely in cloth, Mama Efe decided she would go back to that forest hut where her fate had changed. She had avoided returning for decades, partly out of fear of the price she never paid, partly because she had no need. But now, with everything at stake, she was willing to beg if she had to. It was dangerous to travel so late, especially alone and on foot. But Mama Efe felt urgency pounding in her veins. She grabbed a walking stick and a small lantern and slipped out into the night. The path to Iyawoya's place was long and wound beyond known roads. Still, Mama Efe remembered the general direction, eastward toward the dense forest by the river. The night was humid and dark clouds swallowed the moon, leaving only her lantern's glow to guide her. As she hurried down a dirt trail past sleeping homesteads, she thought she heard soft footsteps behind her. Each time she paused and turned, there was nothing, just the sway of bushes or the scuttle of a lizard on the path. Paranoid, she told herself, shaking her head, but she could not deny the creeping sensation of being followed. She pressed on, walking for miles. Overhead, thunder rumbled in the distance. The air smelled of impending rain. After what felt like hours, she recognized the twisted shape of a silk cotton tree at a fork in the path, a landmark she remembered from that fateful night years ago. Relief surged through her. The hut should be just a little further. Lightning flickered, illuminating the sky. As Mama Efe finally arrived at the clearing where Iyawoya's campfire had once glowed, she halted, heart pounding. The hut was no longer there. In its place were shared remains of walls barely a foot high, overgrown with weeds. It looked as if it had burned down long ago. Cold rain began to fall, first in sparse heavy drops, then in sheets. Mama Efe, stunned and drenched, wandered through the ruins. There was nothing useful left, but ashes and memories. Where had the old witch doctor gone? If she was dead, then all hope of guidance was gone with her. A flash of lightning and a roar of thunder made Mama Efe jump. The storm was directly overhead now. She sought shelter under the remnants of the hut awning, huddling by a crumbling wall. Rainwater streamed around her feet, muddying the ground. In her mind, she desperately called out, "Iyawoya, help me, please!" But only the storm answered, with howling wind and the lash of cold water. For the first time in decades, Mama Efe felt utterly helpless. The magnitude of her situation crashed down on her. The power she had relied on, the secret source of her youth, was gone or failing. Fear like she had never known collided around her heart. The fear of aging, of withering away in a feeble old crone, of facing the judgment of the spirit and of God for all she had done. As thunder boomed again, Mama Efe sank to her knees in the mud. She was beyond pride now. She wept, tears mixing with the rain on her face. "What have I done?" she whispered brokenly to the night. "All this, for what? Osagie? He's probably old or dead by now. Those people who hurt me, they are gone, or they never knew what becomes of me. And in trying to prove myself, I became this." Her fingers dug into the mud, anger and self-loathing warring within her. She thought she heard a faint sound behind her, perhaps a footstep squelching in the wet ground. Mama Efe lifted her head, ears pricked. The darkness beyond her lantern's small glow was impenetrable. The hair on her neck stood on end. There it is again. A shuffle, then what sounded like a whisper. With shaking hands, she raised the lantern, casting light around. Between the slanting lines of rain, she glimpsed a shape of her left, a human silhouette standing just at the forest edge. Mama Efe's breath caught. "Who is there?" she called, voice trembling. No answer. The figure did not move. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the clearing starkly for a brief moment. In that flash, Mama Efe saw them, several figures silently encircling the clearing. All small and of varying heights. They were children, girls. They stood unnaturally still, rain pouring through them as though they were made of mist. And their eyes, in the electric light, she saw their eyes fixed on her, glowing with an otherworldly blue. The lantern nearly slipped from Mama Efe's hand as she choked on a scream. The darkness returned as the lightning faded. But now, she knew she was not alone. She scrambled to her feet, clutching the broken figurine to her chest like a talisman, though it was useless now. "Stay back!" she cried desperately. "Stay away from me!" Her voice echoed in the clearing. The only response was the drumming of rain. For a long moment, no lightning came, but Mama Effie could sense the presence of all around her growing closer. She thought she heard soft sobbing mixed with the wind, a child's sob, and then, directly behind her, a whisper, "Mama Effie!" She turned around with a shriek, swinging her lantern widely. The light fell upon a face inches from her own, a young girl, dripping wet, her neck bent at an unnatural angle as if broken. The girl's eyes were clouded and milky, her face half decayed, yet Mama Effie recognized the features from a picture she had once seen clutched by grieving parents. It was Isosa, the first girl she had ever taken, the one by the river bank. The girl's lips moved, and though they made no sound, Mama Effie heard her voice inside her head. "Why did you hurt me?" Mama Effie screamed and stumbled back, dropping the lantern. The light guttered and went out, leaving her in near total darkness with the phantoms. The rain suddenly ceased, plunging the night into an eerie silence broken only by Mama Effie's raged breaths. Another flash of lightning lit up in a new tableau, more ghostly forms closing in. There was Bosse, the orphan, and Ivie, recognizable by the identical bead bracelet she wore on her wrist, the same one Mama Effie had given and later retrieved to use against her, and other faces from other nights of the scene. They surrounded Mama Effie, their expressions sorrowful and pitiless all at once. Mama Effie's mind could not withstand it. With a half sob, half mad laugh, she flung the broken figurine at Isosa's apparition. "Take it! Take it back! I never wanted to hurt any of you," she cried. I just wanted to be happy. I wanted to be beautiful. Is that such a crime?" Her voice creaked into hysterical laughter that echoed among the trees. The ghost did not flinch at the hurled object, which passed through Isosa and clattered onto the wet ground. They moved closer, tightening the circle. Mama Effie felt a freezing cold radiating from them now. The girl's spirits still did not speak aloud, but their thoughts bombarded her like a chorus inside her skull. "Thief! Murderer! Your time has come." "No, please!" Mama Effie wailed. She spun around, looking for an escape. Through the ring of specters, she saw a gap, whether real or imagined. She couldn't tell, an opening towards the back to Epoma. With a surge of blind survival instinct, she bolted toward it. The figures parted just enough for her to slip through, and then gave chase, gliding after her with silent, relentless speed. Mama Effie ran, stumbling and half blind with terror. The storm had passed as quickly as it came. Now only the dripping of leaves and an occasional rumble of thunder remained. In the darkness, she crashed through bushes, scratching her arms and face. Branches seemed to claw at her like hands trying to hold her back. She felt the presence of the spirits right at her heels, as if icy fingers could snatch her away any moment. Out of the forest, she burst onto the open road. There were faint lantern lights in the far distance, Epoma's outskirts. "Home! I must get home," she thought, as if her house could be a sanctuary from the supernatural. She could barely breathe, the night air pressing on her chest like a weight. No one was on the road at this hour. Mama Effie's once graceful limbs were now heavy and aching. Each step seemed harder than the last, as if unseen burdens were piling upon her. Indeed, with every frantic yard she covered, she felt herself growing older. The grey in her hair spread like spilled ink. Lines etched deeper around her eyes and mouth. Her back began to bend, joints stabbing with pain. The breaking of the juju was catching up, the stolen years demanding to return to their rightful owners. By the time Mama Efe reached the first house of Ekpoma, she was staggering like an old beggar. She paused, leaning against the fence, chest heaving. She looked over her shoulder down the road she had come. No sign of the ghostly girls at the moment. Maybe, just maybe, she had outrun them to town, to the living world. A dog started barking furiously from one of the compounds, sensing an unholy presence. Lights flickered in the few windows. Mama Efe realized she must look a fright. Soaked, muddy, her shawl lost somewhere in the woods, hair hanging in a wide grey strand around a face that felt unfamiliar and slackened by age. But she couldn't stop now. Perhaps, if she could just reach her house and hide, the dawn would protect her. Or she could find another charm. Somehow, clutching her side in pain, she moved on, shambling through the sleeping town. In her confusion, instead of going straight to her home, her feet led her to the marketplace, her second home of so many years. The wide marketplace was empty and ghostly under the faint light of a crescent moon that emerged after the storm. The stalls stood like silent sentinels. Mama Efe stumbled to the udala tree by her stall and collapsed there, sobbing weakly. "Help! Somebody help me!" she shouted. But at this hour, only the spirits heard. At that moment, another figure emerged into the market square, drawn by the earlier barking and the sense that something was amiss. It was Itohon. She had been awake through the storm, watching over Osato, who had taken ill with a sudden fever after returning home. Osato had fitful dreams and at one point murmured about a cold darkness. Concerned for her daughter and uneasy in her spirit, Itohon had been praying when she felt compelled to step outside. Seeing a strange light and commotion in the distance, she had followed it cautiously, which led her towards the market. Now, Itohon gasped as she recognized the person beneath the tree. It looked like an aged stranger at first, but even under the wrinkless and disheveled state, she knew those eyes. "Mama Efe," Itohon whispered, scarcely believing it. How could this be Mama Efe? The ever-young, vibrant woman now looked as old as a 78-year-old woman. Mama Efe lifted her head at the sound of her name. In the dim light, she saw Itohon standing a few yards away, lantern in her hand, eyes wide with shock. Behind Itohon, other figures approached, neighbors who had also been aroused. A couple of vigilante night guards came too, thinking perhaps a thief had been caught. They all formed a cautious semicircle at a distance, unsure what they were witnessing. Realizing she was no longer alone, Mama Efe tried to rise, but pain shot through her body and she sank back down with a groan. Itohon, gathering courage, stepped closer. Though fear clutched at her, so did compassion and a burning need for answers. "Mama Efe, what has happened to you?" she asked in a trembling voice. Mama Efe gave a bitter, broken laugh. The sound was eerie, echoing in the silence. "Happened?" she rasped. "Everything! And now, at last, it's over." The onlookers looked at one another in confusion. One of the night guards raised his lantern, casting more light on the scene. Everyone could now see clearly. The once beautiful spice seller, now gaunt and withered as if decades has fallen on her in one night. "Is that really her?" a guard muttered. "This is witchcraft." "She was fine this morning," A market woman whispered, making the sign of the cross. Lord have mercy. Itoho stepped even closer. Within a few feet of Mama Efe, though still out of reach, a mix of fear and anger swelled within Itoho. Here lay the woman she had secretly suspected of harming Ivie, now grotesquely transformed. If there was ever a time to learn the truth, it is now, she thought. Where is the pretty face you wore, Mama Efe? Itoho asked, with an edge to her voice. What evil is this? Mama Efe looked up at Itoho. In the older woman's eyes, she saw not just accusation, but also genuine hurt. The hurt of a mother who had lost her child. And others in the gathering crowd wore similar looks. Indeed, 2 men present had lost nieces in past years, and a woman had lost her cousin. Unknown to them all, many of them had been touched by the tragedies Mama Efe caused. Surrounded, in pain, and with her pursuers likely not far behind, Mama Efe felt something snap inside her. Maybe it was the last shred of strength, or perhaps the burden of her sins finally too heavy to carry. In a cracked, wailing voice, she began to confess. I am not who you think I am, she cried out. My name was Esosa. I was once a young woman who was called ugly and worthless. Her words tumbled out, frantic and aloud in the night, as bewildered villagers listened. They taunted me, rejected me. I was a good wife, and they threw me away. Those in the crowd glanced at each other. This was not the explanation they expected. Some murmured, recognizing a tone of madness, but Itoho motioned for silence. She sensed a terrible truth was being laid bare. I made a vow, Mama Efe continued between sobs, that I would shine no matter what, that I would become beautiful and never grow old, so that no one could ever hurt me or abandon me again. Her voice rose to a hysterical pitch. And I did. I found a way. I took it. A juju, a dark magic. There were gasps and cries of dismay from the listeners. The word juju rippled through them. Some immediately stepped back, fearful that a curse might spread. You used juju to stay strong and young? Iman asked in disbelief. Mama Efe nodded vehemently. She clutched at her face as if feeling the remnant of its youth there. For 40 years, I have cheated time, she mourned. While you all grew older, I stayed the same. Do you know how? Her eyes darted around, feverish, until they landed on Itoho. I stole it. I stole life from your children. A collective hiss of shock and horror went up. Itoho felt as if the ground tilted. Her knees weakened. Behind her, someone cried out, Ah! She is a witch. Another shouted angrily, Which children? What is she saying? Itoho's voice cut through the rising chaos, sharp and commanding in maternal fury. Ivie, she cried, tears in her eyes. My daughter, tell me what you did to Ivie, Mama Efe. What did you do to my child? Mama Efe's contorted face crumpled at the mention of Ivie. Ivie, beautiful child, she whispered, swaying as if drunk. She should have lived, but I took her future. I gave her that bracelet. I spoke the curse. I did it. I killed her. Itoho let out a keening wail, confirming her worst fear. Those nearby caught her as she staggered, grief and rage battling within her. Others now pressed forward, the crowd growing bolder and angrier, though still maintaining a slight fearful distance. People demanded answers. The names of those harmed. In a torrent, Mama Efe listed them. as if reciting a twisted litany that had long haunted her dreams. I saw her by the river, Boss said the orphan, little Fola from 2 winters ago, Ivie last year, and more. Some names the villagers recognized, others perhaps from beyond Ekpoma. Each name was another stone cast into the crowd's hearts. Cries of grief and fury erupted. One of the men, whose niece Bosse had died, lunged forward in anger, brandishing a cutlass he had carried as a night guard. "Murderer!" he shouted. Others held him back, but the sentiment was shared by many. A murmur of, "We should deal with her. She deserves no mercy," passed through the crowd. But then, a sudden wind gusted through the market, wiping dust into everyone's faces. The udala tree's branches rustled violently, though no new storm had arrived. The temperature dropped so quickly that those in the front of the crowd saw their breath puff white in the lantern light. An airy hush fell. Itohon, through her tears, noticed Mama Efe's expression change. The old woman's eyes went wide with renewed terror as she looked past Itoho at something none of them could see. Mama Efe scrabbled back against the trunk of the tree, raising her hands as if to ward off invisible foes. "No, please, not here, not now," she begged in a hoarse whisper. "What is it? What do you see?" a villager asked, voice trembling. Before Mama Efe could answer, the lanterns around the market inexplicably flickered out, one by one, plunging the square into darkness save for the faint moonlight. People shouted in surprise, and then they all heard it, the sound of children's laughter, but it was not the innocent kind they knew from daytime. This laughter echoed from all directions, overlapping, high-pitched, and distorted with pain and malice. It sent chills through even the bravest present. The spirits, an old woman in the crowd, gasped, making a protective sign over her chest. "Spirits of the children." Suddenly, one of the vigilante guards who stood close to Mama Efe cried out and stumbled back, as if pushed by unseen hands. "Something touched me," he yelled, eyes wide in fear. Others started to back out, some tripping over baskets and crates in their haste to get clear of whatever unseen force had descended. Itohon did not flee, though terrified. She knelt where she was, wrapping her arms around a now awake Osato. For Osato had woken at home and, despite her mother's instructions to stay put, followed Itohon at a distance out of worry. She arrived just in time to witness part of the confession. Itohon clutched her daughter protectively, whispering prayers under her breath as the chaos unfolded. Mama Efe was left isolated in the center of the market, her form illuminated only by the dim silver of moonlight. And there in the shadows around her, they appeared. This time, everyone could see them, the faintly glowing shapes of girls stepping forward, encircling the tree and the cursed woman beneath it. The villagers gasped in unison, some too frightened to scream, others openly sobbing or praying. One ghost stepped closer to Mama Efe. It was Ivie, beautiful little Ivie, recognizable even in spectral form by the outline of her favorite ribbon still in her hair. Ivie's ghostly form pointed a finger at Mama Efe, and though her spirit made no sound, Mama Efe heard her clearly in her mind. "Your time is done, Ivie. Oh, Ivie, my child." Mama Efe wept, reaching out to the apparition of the girl she had killed. "I loved you in my own way. I'm sorry. But her pleas were cut off as another spirit joined Ivie. "I saw her," the first girl whose ghostly hand grabbed Mama Efe's outstretched arm. To the onlookers, it looked as though Mama Efe's arm simply rose on its own, twisted at an odd angle. Mama Efe screamed in agony as the old bones in her arm cracked audibly. That snapped whatever remained of the crowd numbness. People shrieked and stumbled back further. A few ran outright, not wanting to see more, but a core group remained, morbidly transfixed, including Itoho, who shielded Osato's eyes but could not herself look away. More spirits closed in. One by one, they touched Mama Efe on her shoulders, her back, her hair, and with each touch, Mama Efe's body jerked and aged more. Her hair turned completely white, then began to fall out in clumps. Her skin sagged further, liver spots appearing as if painted by invisible hands. She wailed, a long piercing sound of pure despair and terror. "Forgive me! Forgive me, please! Please!" she cried to the ghost, to the night, to anyone listening. For a brief moment, it seemed the spirit paused, as if considering her plea. Mama Efe, now barely able to stand, half blind with age and pain, looked around at the ring of youthful phantoms through clouded eyes. "I was wrong," she moaned. "I was wrong. I am so sorry." Among the remaining villagers, some felt a tug of pity even through their horror. Pity for the broken woman before them who had once been so vibrant. They waited, breathless, so to see if the apology would appease the wronged souls. Ivie's ghost tilted her head, and for an instant, Itoho thought she saw a flicker of the sweet girl she remembered in that ethereal face. But then, a distinct voice echoed through the square. It was not the voice of a child, but that of an old woman, cold and filled with grim satisfaction. A life for life, a debt for a debt. It is time. Mama Efe recognized it even as her fading heart gave a lurch. Iyawoya, the witch doctor's spirit, unseen but present, had spoken the decree. This was the price, come due at last. The circle of girl spirits closed in fully around Mama Efe, obscuring her from the crowd's view. The air crackled with energy, and a sudden wild wind swirled leaves and dust up around the Odala tree like a veil. Villagers shielded their eyes, and some swore later that they saw dozens of other shapes in that wild wind. Hands and faces, perhaps even the looming shadow of an old woman guiding the ritual of judgment. Mama Efe's final scream rose from within that maelstrom, a sound that would haunt the nightmares of all who heard it. It was a cry of pain, yes, but also of regret and the horror of one who sees too late the monster she allowed herself to become. The wind whipped into a frenzy. Then with a great whoosh, it exploded outward, knocking a few people off their feet and dousing every lamp within several streets. When the dust settled and the moonlight quietly shone again, the space beneath the Udala tree was empty. The spirits were gone, the ghostly children, the presence of Iyawoya, all vanished with the wind. And with them, Mama Efe was gone too. Not a single trace of her remained, except as the onlookers crept closer, they saw something lying on the ground. One of the guards retrieved it and held it up, a small carved figurine, broken cleanly in two. In the hush that followed, only soft sobbing and the distant barking of dogs could be heard. Itohon, still holding Osato, approached the base of the tree. She knelt and gingerly took one half of the figurine from the guard's hand. It felt cold as ice. Osato peeked behind her mother's shawl, her fever seemingly gone, replaced by a sleepy confusion. She looked at the broken carving and then up at her mother. "Mama, what happened?" she whispered. Itoho pulled her daughter close, not knowing how to explain to the young girl. "Justice, my child," she said quietly, voice trembling. "Justice, and a lesson we must never forget." Over the next days, Ekmoma struggled to return to normal. The tale of that night spread through the town like wildfire and then beyond, turning into the very folktale you hear now. The market store under the Udala tree remained vacant. No one dared to claim it or even move Mama Efe's old table or spices for a long time, as if disturbing it might stir her lingering shadow. Eventually, rain and wind carried away the last traces of her presence. Osato recovered fully from her fever by the next morning, waking up cheerful and healthy, as if the previous day had been a bad dream. She remembered bumping into Mama Efe and then faint voices and her mother's arms around her. But little else. Itoho, however, remembered everything with poignant clarity. She and a few elders of the village gathered the families of the lost girls for a private meeting. Together, they decided to perform a cleansing for the community, a way to honor the dead and heal the wound left behind. They built a small shrine of remembrance by the Udala tree, leaving offering of fresh flowers, white chalk, and candles for each girl's spirit. A priest prayed, a native elder chanted, and the mothers wept together, finding solace in shared grief. The broken juju figurine was taken by the eldest chief and locked away, eventually to be given to the Onoje's palace as a curious but dangerous artifact, with strict instruction that it never be used again. Some said it was later thrown into a deep river by a wise priest to rid the land of its curse. As for Mama Efe, or Esosa, as she had called herself at the end, no one ever saw her again. In the hushed conversations, some wondered if her wretched soul was still out there, paying an eternal price among the restless spirits. Others hoped she found some mercy beyond, after serving her penance, but all agreed her fate was a dear warning. The village of Ekpoma slowly healed. In time, new traders came, new children were born, some even giving the names of the lost in their memory. The story of the market woman who never aged was told again and again around lantern light, each teller adding their own flourishes, but always ending the same, with the night of reckoning under the Udala tree. Osato grew into a lovely young woman, kind-hearted and free of the shadow that had nearly claimed her. She often helped her mother in the market, and every time she passed by the Udara tree, she felt a mix of sorrow and gratitude. Sorrow for the girls whose life fed the vanity of one woman, and gratitude that she herself had been saved by what seemed like the very hand of fate. Osato would sometimes place a small bouquet of wildflowers at the base of the tree, without saying anything, but in her heart, it was in the thanks to whatever power had protected her and in remembrance of Ivie and the others. And the people of Ekpoma did reflect, as the tale urged them to. Parents taught their children that envy and bitterness can rot the sweetest heart if left unchecked. Young ones learned that true beauty is goodness, kindness, and love, things that cannot be stolen or gained by harming others. The village elders often ended the tale with a solemn proverb: a borrowed garment of beauty will one day tear, but the fabric of a good soul lasts forever. The story of the market woman who never aged. Until a little girl touched her, it was a tale of pain and revenge, of the supernatural and the consequences of our choices. In the end, it stands as a reminder that no secret stays hidden forever, and every stolen blessing must eventually be returned. And in a small town in Edo State, under the shade of an old Udara tree, the wind seemed to whisper this truth whenever market day dawns anew. Trying to use evil powers to get beauty or success will only bring pain in the end. True beauty is in being kind, honest, and good to others, not in how you look on the outside. If you hurt innocent people just to get what you want, one day the truth will come out and you will pay for it. Be content with who you are and never let anger or shame push you into doing things you will regret forever. And with that, my dear friends, our story comes to a close. But remember, the magic of storytelling lives on, waiting to whisk us away on new adventures, where the wonders of imagination know no bounds. Goodbye for now, and may your dreams be filled with joy, wonder, and endless possibility. Thank you so much for watching. Please kindly comment, like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more interesting stories.
Long ago a woman cried, her heart was torn apart. Her husband's words like sharpened knives, they cut into her heart. She vowed beneath the evening sky that beauty would be hers. She sought the power of darkened hands and bound her life to curse. Under the Udala tree, the market told her name. Under the Udala tree, the wind carried her shame. She never aged, she never changed, but the young girls faded fast. Under the Udala tree, her day of reckoning came at last. One little girl with gentle hands broke the charm she wore. The faces of the ones she took came knocking at her door. The night was filled with crying winds. The market heard her plea, but the spirits took her far away to where no eyes could see. Under the Udala tree, the market told her name. Under the Udala tree, the wind carried her shame. She never aged, she never changed, but the young girls faded fast. Under the Udala tree, her day of reckoning came at last. Beauty without kindness is a shadow in disguise. The river takes back what was stolen, and the spirits will rise. Under the Udala tree, her story will be told. Under the Udala tree, the truth will not grow old. She never aged, she never changed, but her sin could never pass. Under the Udala tree, her end had come at last.